What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It's time for the starting 11 prediction for tomorrow's game at home against St Mirren. But before we get to that, we have to talk, obviously, about the big news this morning that Peter Lawwell has announced he's retiring from his role as Chief Executive at the end of the season. About 40 people texted me this morning saying, "Is that you happy now?" So I think that tells you everything you need to know. Reflecting, first of all, on Peter Lawwell, I think there'll be plenty of time in the coming months before he leaves to talk about his legacy and stuff like that. But a lot of talk today, obviously, straight after the announcement about how he'll be remembered, and it's obviously divisive as it often can be when it comes to Celtic. But I think ultimately the things that Peter Lawwell has done well in his time here have been the financial stability, the balance sheet, and off the park safe use of the resources that the club has. I think at times that has cost us. How many transfer windows has there been in the time that Peter Lawwell has been here where we've bemoaned the slow activity early in a transfer window and then missed out on the Champions League, and that has been all too common, certainly in recent years. We've made the group stages of the Champions League twice in the last 7 years, which I think for a club of our stature is pretty unacceptable. There's no doubt that he had a role in this unprecedented domestic success that we've had, and a lot of people look back on that and say that that's his crowning glory. But ultimately, the big goal at the end of all of this, and I think the thing that Peter Lawwell would have wanted as well, would have been to guide the club to that 10 in a row, and then leave at the end of the season. He's not been able to do that. The club have failed this season. He's failed in his decision making, and in the appointment of managers. Chief among them, Tony Mowbray, Ronnie Dyla and Neil Lennon the second time round. I think they are all examples of poor decisions. Now I know Dermot Desmond's got a role to play in all of them, primarily in the appointment of managers and in really making the big decisions at the club as the majority shareholder. But there's no doubt that Peter Lawwell, on the grand scheme, if you look at his whole tenure, he's had success, absolutely, but has he made mistakes and has he had failures? Of course he has. The club also obviously confirming today that Dominic McKay will take over the role as Chief Executive as of the 1st of July. Without knowing too much about him, I've read a bit today, I've watched a couple of videos. He is the COO of Scottish Rugby, and the thing that jumps out to me is that he has a background in communications. Now, I hope that is something that can really help him in his role as a Celtic Chief Executive, because if I could ask one thing of him, it would be to change the way the club communicates with the supporters. It would be to move towards a more proactive, open, direct form of communication with the supporters, to take control of how certain issues are perceived, to have a better PR, a better communication strategy, and I hope that he can bring that. There's no doubt that when he comes in July, he's going to have a stacked in tray. I don't envy him. He's got a massive job on his hands working with a new manager. Okay, we know Dermot Desmond will probably ultimately be the man who chooses the new manager, but working with a new manager, integrating it in a new club, taking over from a chief executive who's been there for 17 years, overseeing what looks like will be a massive transition in the playing squad as well. We know that a lot of big players are probably going to leave in the summer. So there's going to be a huge rebuild on the park and off the park. I think the biggest challenge he has off the park is obviously selling season tickets. The managerial appointment, whatever it may be, however that might unfold between now and the end of the season, will be the biggest factor in selling season tickets. But away from the stuff on the park and in the dugout, I think the club have to obviously look at the value offered to the supporters in the face of the pandemic, because we all put our hands in our pockets and paid £600, some people much more than that this season, because it was a big season, even though the pandemic was there and people were facing financial hardship. But if we are going to go into next season with no sign of full capacity on the horizon, it's going to be a real challenge for the club in terms of coming up with a proposition as to what a season ticket is going to give to supporters next season, if it's going to be massively reduced capacity, or worst case scenario, an extension of this behind closed doors setup that we've had to endure this season. So there's no doubt he's got a massive job on his hands when he takes over in July. I wish him the absolute best. I hope he's the chief executive that we need him to be. I hope he excels, and I hope his stay in that role at Celtic is long and hugely successful. To get to the game tomorrow, I don't think we're going to see too many changes to the team that faced Hamilton the other night. I thought, as we covered in the post-match content, it was a good performance. We dominated the first half. We had so many chances, but we were wasteful in the final third time and time again, whether it be with poor finishing or poor decision making. And again, that's been a characteristic all season. St Mirren are obviously high on confidence coming into this one. They did beat Dundee United at Tannadice 5-1 during the week. They obviously lost their League Cup semi-final to Livingston a few days before that. But there's no doubt they'll be high in confidence. They're playing well this season. I think Jim Goodwin's got them playing well. They obviously put Rangers out of the Betfred Cup as well. And the game that we did have against them this season, the only game we had was 2-1 at St Mirren. So there's no doubt they'll try and make it difficult for us. As I say, I don't think there'll be too many changes in goals. The big surprise the other night that Barkas dropped out again. Really strange comments for the manager, given that 4 or 5 weeks ago he said that Barkas was the number one. He's not up to the speed of the game apparently, despite the fact that he only plays in goals. Listen, Barkas hasn't covered himself in glory. He certainly doesn't look like the best signing ever. He doesn't look like he's going to be the best Celtic goalkeeper ever, or even a long-term number one. But it just seems strange to 4 or 5 weeks ago say he's the man, we want him to be number one, and then the other night there say he's not been good enough, we're putting Scott Bain back in. It's just been a constant rotation in goals this season. It doesn't really help MD. But I do expect Bain will keep his place for tomorrow. The back four, I think, will be really similar. I think Ayer will play right back, obviously, because we're really short in that position with Frimpong's departure. Centre half, I expect Duffy and Beaton to play there. Left back, I'm going to go with Greg Taylor. I thought Laxalt might have come in the other night, but he didn't. Taylor, again, as ever, split an opinion. Some people love him, some people hate him. But that's football, innit? I think he'll play at left back tomorrow. Into midfield, we did see the diamond again the other night. El Yunusi at the top, which was a little bit of a change. I do think Sorrow will keep his place. McGregor will obviously play. I do expect Christie to start this game. I know I said the other night it's not a surprise that he dropped out, given how poor he's been recently. But I just don't think El Yunusi's best position is in that sort of 10 role. It meant that Turnbull's a little bit deeper in the pitch as well. So I think it's better if we can bring Christie in, play him as the 8 alongside McGregor, and have David Turnbull at the tip of the diamond. So I hope that's how the midfield's set up tomorrow. And there's no doubt up top, I would fully expect Lee Griffiths to play alongside Odsonne Edouard. They got a goal each the other night. Some good bits of link up again, as there always is between they two when they play up front together. So I fully expect them to start. And as I say, I just hope that we get a really convincing win. The managerial situation, I think with the announcement today that Peter Lawwell was leaving at the end of the season, I think the managerial situation is just going to stay until the end of the season. It'll be May. Maybe if once the league becomes mathematically impossible, they might announce that Neil Lennon will leave at the end of the season. But I don't expect any changes before then. So it does look like we're just going to have to put up with the situation in the dugout until the end of the season. But I'm just relieved today. I'm relieved that we're getting the change that the club so desperately needs. I think everything that's gone on this season has highlighted the fact that the club does need fresh ideas, fresh leadership, fresh direction. And I'm glad that today we have seen some sort of indication that is what's going to happen this summer. So I'm happy that it looks like we're going to get changes. That's the team I think the manager will play tomorrow. Like the video, comment with your own thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you tomorrow for all the post-match content as normal. Cheers.